We'll look into the hidden beliefs of the individuals and interactions over process and tools. Arie explained in his keynote that whenever we talk about the individuals and interactions over processes and tools, it doesn't mean that we are not valuing the process and tools. The processes and tools are still there, but we value the individuals and interactions more over process and tools. Why? Because the process will evolve itself. You'll adopt new tools. The organizational belief about its people, that is more important. How the organization is empowering the leaders, how they are giving their trust to their teams, that is more important. So this value, individual interactions, basically touches the organizational belief. Okay? So when we talk about the organizational belief, and the result of, like, if you go through a true transformation and you implement this value and you have this thing in place, like the values and principles, it means that it will definitely result in the change in the organization design. This point has been discussed in Arie's keynote. This point has been discussed in Bass's keynote, that the organizational belief about the people is so important. When you talk about the working software or comprehensive documentation, what are the hidden beliefs? So working software is a business value. If you look at the principles, we deliver frequently and very early, start from the beginning, the business value. So just look at the human side of this principle. When you go deep into that, what does that mean? If you are delivering frequently, it means you have to have a different outlook on planning. You have to have a different outlook on budgeting. And we have listened in our keynotes that it will impact the HR. It will impact the finance. Okay? So it means that it will impact the way you approach your work. Okay? So the early and frequent delivery of business value requires a different way of thinking, a different way of approaching the work. The roles will change. People will come together. There will be a new role descriptions. So we have to think on the human side. Are our organizations ready for this change? Okay. Are our people, those who will undergo this transformation, they are ready for the change in their roles and descriptions? Are they aware of their role? Are they ready? Are they coached? Are they trained on that? So how much we have invested in the transformation of our people. So if you go deep into this principle, it touches the people's capacity. How the roles and description and the working approach of the people will change. So the manifesto, the first value, touches the belief of the organization implicitly. In a very simple way, individuals and interactions over process and tools. But if you go deep, it touches the organizational beliefs. In the second value, what we have discussed is the people's capacity. Do they know their new role? Do they know what is required of them? Do leaders support them? How they are interacting together? It's about building great teams. It's about empowering them to take their own decisions. It's about giving them direction, and as Arie mentioned in his keynote, I don't care how the work is done. The leaders should care about the value. They are there just to guide and let the teams do their job. So they should be aware, they should be well-trained, they should be coached, they should be empowered. Okay? So this goes deep into on the human side of the team dynamics. The hidden beliefs in the third value, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. How do we do that? By the way, if I ask the question with this audience, how many of you have gone through Agile transformations? And how many of you are planning to go through Agile transformations? I think if we count, it's more than or almost 80%. Okay, if I ask another question, What do you think, by just going through two principles, the organizational belief part and the people's capacity, what do you think? Did your organization get the message when they started the transformation? 1. So it means out of the 80% of this population, of this sample, the only one guy said they knew it. It was mentioned, and we discussed that in the keynote, that we're talking about transformation, but what we do is implementation. So there's a difference between implementation and transformation. So the third is customer collaboration or contract negotiation. If you look at this principle, how do we manage risks in our organizations? By signing off with the customer. What we are doing actually, we are shifting, we are avoiding the risk. Okay? We are not co-creating with the customer. Diving deep into this value, customer collaboration or contract negotiation, it asks you to think of your partners, vendors, as part of the team. It's not us versus them. It's that we are coming together on the board, on the table, we are sharing the risk, we are co-creating our solutions. Okay? So that's how we do things in Agile, and that's how when really transformation happens. It's not the implementation. You have to have all the partners, vendors, all the stakeholders on board, and then you co-create with them. Responding to change or following a plan. I mean, Arie and I were discussing this point yesterday, and he said an amazing thing. He said, whenever you follow a plan, you have some interpretations. The interpretations give space to the assumptions. And then assumptions are resulted in estimations. And they all are wrong. Okay? So responding to change over following a plan. This actually states that in our process, do we have proper touch points with our customers so that we can come together, listen to each other, and have a safe environment to practice transparency, to see what we can listen and what we can adapt in future. Okay? So this is where the real innovation comes in. So the first thing, we talk about the beliefs of the organization. The second value goes deep into the people's capacity, the way they are being empowered, the way they are being trusted. The third value was collaborating with the customers, creating an environment of co-creation. So in third value, the manifesto goes out from the organization, from the people to the larger ecosystem. And by moving out in the larger ecosystem, now the manifesto in the fourth value, it's talking about listening and adapting for innovation. Arie, do you have something more to add in following a plan?
Yeah, what I would like... Oh, can we switch back? Okay, let's start with myself, right? So I was doing a sort of an Agile project years ago, like 23 years ago. And at the company where I worked for was a bank in the Netherlands. They had a standard of using MS Project. Who's using MS Project? I see someone doing this. Whoa, that hurts. The point is, I was doing, this was an older version of MS Project. So I spent a whole lot of time, having all those requirements and the team members, and was doing it, and then I made a mistake. I didn't push the save button. I saw the wizard button, the little magical hat with the wand. I thought, okay, this is going to help me in making my planning even better. And I clicked the wizard button, and all of a sudden my project was 3 times as long. Right? And that's the moment where I stopped, because I thought, I'm spending a whole lot of time on making something that's going to change the moment that I saved it. And a couple of reasons why planning, saved. I think the plan starts with, what do I want to achieve? And I would like to make a metaphor, what planning means to me. 2 years ago, I was sailing the North Sea with a team of 6, a boat of 15 meters, sailing, leaving the Netherlands, close to Amsterdam, going to the North Sea, sailing the coast, crossing to the UK, south of England, in the middle of the night. And before leaving the harbor again, because quick stop, the skipper said, okay guys, sit down at the table, I'll show you how we are going to sail. This was Saturday morning, 1 o'clock, right, very early, very early. And he said, we're going to sail tonight to be able to have, later tonight at 8 o'clock in the evening, dinner in Normandy. He's in France. Right? So he set a very smart objective, value. This is what we want to achieve. Good. And he said, look at the map. Now, if you do work on, who of you have been on a sailing boat? Okay, so we know about things like current and the tide and the wind, right? And okay, so the skipper had to look at the map and he made a plan. This is how we sail. And I had the first watch, beautiful, you know, high seas, clear sky, full moon. So no revolves, but it was awesome. And then, you know, I think like 5 or 6 in the morning, I went to bed, right? And someone else took over. So it was like 8 or 9, I don't know anymore. I came on deck again. Guess what? Wind gone. So you have this requirements list that you say, okay, you know, I know my environment, wind, tide, current, I think I know. And then you make your plan accordingly. And always, ladies and gentlemen, always things change. Now the point is, what we do is we act as if the plan was totally right and awesome. So it was so awesome that we had managers involved. And the next step is, so if we want to change the plan, we have to ask the managers if that's okay. And this is where you come in, because change is always there. Don't tell me it's not. There's always change. Now the point is, if I want to change the SMART objective, because if we say, okay, we don't have dinner at 8 in Normandy, but we have it in Oostende in Belgium or somewhere else, then, okay, then the requirements change because we have a different objective. But the objective is for the client, right? He wants to achieve something. The requirements to get there. So as long as the objective stays the same, why should I bother my client? Because he's only looking at, okay, what are we going to achieve? Dinner at 8 o'clock in Normandy. The team has all it has to have to make decisions on what to do next. And we could have stayed in the boat following the requirements list, but I can tell you, without the wind, we would never have dinner at 8 o'clock in Normandy. Right? So you have to change the requirements, but that's up to the team. So the planning, as we talk here, is, you know, on the detailed level. If you keep on making that kind of plan as a Scrum Master or whatever you call yourself, you're just working on the planning all the time. You're wasting your own time. Right? So you have to say, okay, that on the lower level, that's up to the team, and we leave it to the team. And as long as we can set on value when to, because that's the only thing you want to know. Can I deliver on time? Because I need it. Right? And that's where you need to focus on. And the authority to change what you do in the development process should be with the team, as long as the value is guaranteed. And the moment that you have a problem in delivering that on an agreed time with your client, then we have another debate.
So I think there we stopped during our presentation, that you went through, like, this is the integration model, how we go through transformation and not just the implementation.
Yeah. So I made clear that for me there's, and I made the difference between implementation and transformation, because implementation is, okay, you know, we switch engine, so we implement another engine. Transformation is we change as people, right? So I do transformations. So I explain it on stage. Who has questions? Because, you know, I can talk forever, but who has questions? If you're now on this side, you see all those faces looking like this. It's okay to ask a question. We don't bite, okay? Question, please.
There are two things here. One question about risks and the other question about planning. So when you talked about sharing risks, that's okay. But at the end of the day, there will be always in projects, there will be distribution of risk and allocation of risk between the different stakeholders. So we can't get away with that. It's not possible that we say we will just share risk indefinitely like that. Risks, because with risks comes the profit margin we are making and all that kind of thing. So we need to be clear about that. It's not going to be possible between a client and a provider, that the risk will be just sharing at that level. Okay, there will be risks which will lay with the contractor and the vendors as well as the clients. So this is one point. The other point is about planning. In projects, and this is not just necessarily IT projects or projects in the software sector or hardware sector, but in other, all over different sectors. In projects, we must have plans. So if we have Expo 2020, we need plans. Government departments, they need these plans. They need the budget for it. They need to work on that. And they need these initial plans. Yes, plans will change. Yes, change is inevitable in any type of project. But we need the plans, and then we do all the monitoring and control for projects, and we change the plan, and we monitor how the plan changed. But planning is part of any project, in any sector.
What's your question?
So this is a comment. This is because you are, from my feeling is that you're talking in a very idealistic way that about
What's the idealistic
planning,
part?
about planning and about risk sharing and risk management.
Let's take the planning first. What is the idealistic talk that we do?
So the issue that the example, for example, you've given that this is our plan to reach specific place to get dinner there.
Yeah.
And yes, there are uncertainties and there are risks with that. We put the plan, the initial plan, and then we deal with the risks and uncertainties as they come. So this is the issue. But the initial plan is so important as well.
I don't know why you say this to me, because we have a plan. I'm confused, because we do have a plan. I know there is a myth in the Agile world that we don't have plans or something. I don't know where it comes from, but it's a myth. We do have plans, so I hope I can take that away from you. Because you use the word project, I think you work a lot with projects, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me shine a little light on how I work, just how I always work. And I don't care if I do a commercial software development project, or if I have a marketing project, or if I do an Agile Transformation. A project is for me a project. And I know in the Agile world, project has become a dirty word. Don't ask me why. It happened. And so I replaced project by MVP. And then all of a sudden everyone is happy, okay? So, but let's call it project here. Is that okay? Okay, so what I said earlier, you go to I get a call. This is what happened. Simon called me. He said, hey, Arie, I need a new workflow. Okay. So I went to his office. I said, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. He said, yeah, I need a new workflow. What do you think it would cost? This is what the conversation was like. I said, Simon, come on. This you can't ask me seriously based on 2 lines. How does it work? So, but the question is, you have to get to a point to know what does it cost. Because maybe you have clients that just give you money and money and money, but most clients don't, right? They need to have a fixed amount of money for the MVP, at least. Right? Now, how does this work? It's the same thing with product backlogs, the requirements list. They don't grow on trees. You have to work for it to do. So how do you get them in an Agile way? If we combine those two, because the product backlog results in a budget, right? Because that's some things to deliver, so that will cost money, right? That's where you go. In this, I take risk and risk management with me, because risk and risk management is just work to do in the team. So it's part of the whole thing. If you talk about risks in a project, what do you do, from client to supplier, those kind of things. If you have fixed price projects, there's a whole story next to it about how do you do Agile contracts. That's slightly different than risk maybe, but it's very strongly connected. Now the point is, this is Simon. Simon says, hey Arie, do me a workflow. And then I go into this process. And this is what I call, and it's from a very word that's often used in Agile Project Management Framework and DSDM, it's the foundations. If I go into a development project and I work in an Agile way, I have a couple of things to do. First of all, I have to know the business side. What am I going to make and why? right? So the smart objective and what will it look like, I have the idea. Then I have on the solution side, which is like non-functional standards, things like legal aspects, some house styles, architectural standards, whatever you think. I need to know before I start developing, right? And then I have what I call the working agreement. And this is the agile way of working, So in this process, it will take me approximately 2 to 4 weeks, so 1 or 2 sprints. I am very closely working with Simon and his people. And what we together create is this. So I align with them on, okay, first of all, I want to know why. And he said, I want to save 12 million euros a year. That was his answer. After some digging in, that's what he needed to be at 96 efficiency rate. Otherwise, he would have to pay a penalty of 12 million euros. So if we wouldn't get to the 96%, he would have done a project and still, so that's a risk, right, if you go there. I said, okay, I can do that, but I need your people because they know best how we work currently, where we can improve the current work, the workflow that they were actually having. So in a number of sessions, you create a backlog. And the backlog is a whole set of requirements, and we know that this set of requirements is subject to change, like the example with on the sailboat. But given what we know today, this is what we think, together with the people from Simon, what we think that needs to be developed in order to get to the 96%. Right? That's the general idea. And then I can say, okay, in this whole thing, there is, if you take the minimum viable product approach, okay, this is the set of requirements that we do to get to the 96%. Those have value, but this is for the smart objective, the initial set that we need to do. And from this I can say, okay, I can take them into a sprint, I can take those into a sprint, take those into a sprint, and those. And I'm drawing 4 because I know this MVP delivery took me 4 sprints. So when I am here at this moment in time, I can see this. So okay, if we poker or whatever you do to estimate. So I know my team, they know their velocity and they know the number of points. Okay, this is what we think that we need in time. So I now have a budget, and if I have my team working well, they can handle this, but still there will be change. And I don't want to go for the change to a management team because Simon has no idea what needs to happen to get to 96%. He simply doesn't know. His people do. So if they have defined some requirements, but they have a better version or a sharper version or an extra requirement that's also delivering value, to get to the 96% better or easier. I just want to know. Now the point is, in a traditional way, but this is where we talk about the human side. This is where you need all stakeholders together. What we normally do is we have a set of requirements and we fix that because we agree to deliver requirements for a price, right? And the moment that the estimate is wrong, that's most of the time, and then we have things, new insights and changes or whatever, so we vary on time and money. Now, because we don't vary on time and money enough, because changes are always complex and we don't want to pay too much, we not only vary on time and money, but we also vary on the quality. That's in between here. Now, what you do in an agile way is you say, okay, to stay within that budget, I know with those, I've estimated 4 sprints, based on poker. My team is mature, they can really estimate their own velocity. But what happens if in this there is a change? What we do is, in my 4 sprints, I fix time and money. I have my people. That's what it is. So Simon knows exactly what it will cost. And the moment, can you click 2 slides forward, please?
Do you have the clicker?
Oh, here it is, sorry. Now what happens if I do my requirements, right? And the moment that I think, hey, a requirement is really awesome and better than we had before, I change here. The time and money is fixed. One more, please. Oh, and then one more. Yeah, sorry, no, yeah, oh, the bucket. And this is what you have to understand. So what you do with this team, so I have a plan now, right? I do my foundations, I have a plan. I know why the client wants a product. I know basically on the outline what the project should contain. I have my non-functional standards like operations and the communication aspect and the legal aspects. I know what the requirements have to fulfill, and I have a working agreement on how we work agile. And part of that working agreement says, okay, the moment that we have a change somewhere, I know these leaders saying this. If you want to change here something, and you don't want to change time and money, it's like this bucket. The point is, if I use a team, this is what happened to people. You know, we have a group of people working, they're a team, and you have committed yourself to, in the next 2 weeks, to do 8 requirements. And here the manager comes in, you know, the big blonde guy from Germany, and he pushes something extra in. And most managers just expect you to do that too. And it works like this. If I throw something in this bucket, yeah, say it out loud. Yeah, and the point is, if you don't control that process together, then what happens in a team, quality goes out. Because we can work overtime, like the example on stage from the lady, say, oh, we skip testing, you know, that kind of thing. So what you do is, I talked about the heartbeats, the all stakeholder session. The moment that we're having a heartbeat and you come in and you say, okay, you know, guys, you know, this extra requirement, the Excel that I was talking about, absolutely awesome. Okay, we check. I say, hey, this delivers a whole lot of value. And the ones here, they're also delivering value. And if it's, you know, delivering more value than one of the others, we just take that one out. And then we have a guided process of selecting what we take in and deselecting what we leave out. And this is why you need those people in there. This is why you need to be aware that those all stakeholder sessions are so extremely important. Because if you don't have the right people there, you make a decision, the next heartbeat you have a problem. But to be able to do that, you have to agree all together that we work this way. And that's part of the plan. Are you used to Prince 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so I in the Prince 2 time, but Prince 2 seems to be a little over these days, but I said, okay, this is your project initiation document. If you want to make a metaphor to print, because, you know, and then we can go to the human side again, I think, but if you look at Prince 2, you know, I don't know exactly which version it is, but this is the project, what is it like? Initiating a project? No, starting a project, initiating a project, and then you go here to do product development and product delivery and managing the delivery. I think it's something like this. And this is basically foundations. This is your incremental delivery. And this is delivery of your MVP. And then you have here, you have, if you like, right? If you want to make things easy, you know, to make, and it's not the same because they are not the same. I cannot look an apple like a pear or otherwise. You can just, okay, do they have common ground? And this is something that you need. You can have products, like in the startup environment, where you just start. We have teams in Humanity called Barefoot, and they think an opportunity in the market, and they just go. And they start making it. And then after a while, they sell it to someone who's interested. They take a gamble on their own, but most people cannot work like this. So, you know, you need some, especially in organizations where you need to solve a problem, where you need to, you know, catch the opportunity. Okay, then you need a product or a service to be developed. I'm not talking IT, I'm talking in general, making something, whatever you make. And then it's good to have this, and it's also for my client, it's for Simon awesome to know that it will cost him 250,000 euros. So we had a return on investment of 2 weeks or something like this, week and a half. And in the whole process, risks are taken into things like the definition of done, and risks are also taken into the non-functional standards. So we have the people in there. About sharing risks, that's about contracts, that's something else. I've done a lot of, you know, different things, including, you know, value-added delivery and shared, and I just ship people, and I do shared responsibilities, a whole lot of things that you can do, but you have to adapt if you compare to standard fixed price contracts, they're different. I like to take risks. When I work Agile, I like to take risks in the heartbeat. We evaluate together what the risk is like, and if the risk requires work for the team, I just put it on the backlog. And we make sure that the work to manage the risk is done. And then I need the right people on the team. But contracts is a different thing.
Can I have a final comment here? Well, just one thing that I think what you said in the morning was very interesting, that we shouldn't be locked in the process. Because this is what we see, even in academia, even when we were teaching some of the methodologies, as we call them, or methods, people seem to be more interested in the method or the process than the direction and the outcomes. And I think what you have mentioned in the morning is very interesting. that we should have an array of tools and options. And then perhaps in a construction, very well known set of requirements, a waterfall model can be good, and you have a tendering process or a project life cycle of such a nature that makes it a sensible approach. But even in construction, in a different type of project, we may consider Agile and Scrum as a more efficient way. So I think that's the message that we shouldn't be really falling in love with one.
Well, I think you have.
process.
Please check agnosticagile.org if you like. I think you have to be open to everything, as long as within the values and the principles it brings you the benefits of Agile. And if you apply something that no one ever has written down in a book, fine.
Yeah.
Does it help? Yes, great, do it. Right? That's where you should go. Dogmatic working has never ever helped anyone. And to give you an idea how we humans mess up all the time, I don't know if it's totally correct what I say, but as far as I know, the original author of the Waterfall approach, who published a book early 70s, said, hey, I have a nice book here, a method for doing projects. Don't use it for big projects. The rest is history, right? Yeah. Okay, and why? Because of the things that I modeled on stage. It's a process if you make it too big. Yeah. You create one problem after. People ask, yeah, but sometimes you do Agile, sometimes you do Waterfall. No, you don't. Waterfall messes up. It creates delay. You have to move to face-to-face communication and go away from remote and written. And that is maybe the strongest paradigm that we have.
I'm going to ask a question because that connects with his, what he hinted at, he's talking about the context. When we talk about Agile, it addresses the complex adaptive systems. When you're talking about the Waterfall, like you mentioned construction industry. Things are done. I mean, I would like to ask you, how would you identify different contexts? Like, this is a simple context, complicated and complex. So when you talk about Agile or Agile philosophy, so we are talking about the complex adaptive systems. But if he talks about the construction, that may be a simple context or a complicated context. So what do you think? Waterfall doesn't work there? Or what elements of Agile we can bring in?
Someone said recently to me, but what if? What if I know exactly what I need to build? I said, well, then you're a hero, because I never met that situation. I'm 53 years old.
But as you know, in construction, you start a deal with accepting 25% plus or minus variation. Because you need to have a tendering stage, because this is how the industry is managed. I agree with you, perhaps this is not the best way to do it, and we need to change the mindset. But until this happens, this is how a big sector of the economy is managed, in the sense that you need to have documents, you need to tender a project, so this is where perhaps some particularly practitioners fall in the confusion, to the extent that they say, well, no, well, Agile, well, that's software development, is a different story than perhaps construction. I disagree with this. I believe there should be...
Two things about this. First of all, a large part of Agile comes from the car manufacturing industry. So that's one. And second, I know when we wrote the manifesto, every one of us, 17 people, we're all in the IT, I know. But at that moment in time, I was already years and years working on delivering value. If I was, because this backlog is not just about software. I had, when I was doing, my projects, I was here, I had people from the non-functional standards, like lawyers or operations with me. I had Simon, my client, and then I would have teams working. So this is where we inform the client. The teams working, and I would have, like teams in parallel working, marketing, education and training, software development, data migration, hardware ordering, and all those requirements, we call them user stories, were all on the backlog. Right? So I know it's a very stubborn thing. It's IT only. But if you do IT only, these days, as an organization, this is the paradigm. We have to respond faster. So if you keep on doing waterfall, you won't respond faster. So as an organization, we have to work agile, integrated, together. Because if only the IT department is doing it, they're delivering very fast. But if the rest is not following, and if I still have a test at the end, and if I deliver a brilliant software product, but marketing is not ready, I cannot sell it. So I need to do it as a whole. And I think, like, I don't know about you in your practice, but like 5 years ago, if anyone would ask me for an Agile transformation, 9 out of 10, the CIO would contact me. Today, it's always the board or the CEO that contacts me. I'm on stage with the number one of Bosch. I'm on stage with the number one of that Erste Bank, organization with 350,000 people, 55,000 people, and the number one says we have to go agile, right? And I know in the banks, I assume there are people from the financial industry here. In banks, your services can be very much digitalized, much more than building a submarine, right? Just to give a totally different example. So that then maybe it's easier, but at the same time, in a software development project, when I ordered my servers and when I ordered my whatever, that's there. It's the same thing in the Netherlands. They have changed a number of hospital organizations into lean and agile working. They have changed building and housing industry. We have social housing corporations start working agile. Has nothing to do with software or IT, nothing. Yeah. Not even technology. Yes. Right. It's the approach and the mindset. It's getting people together to avoid delay, because that's what you want these days. You want to avoid delay. And I had a governmental officer to me and said, hey, why should we deliver faster? We have no competition. Who cares? I said, well, you know what your problem is? If the parliament is accepting a law and your department is not working accordingly, before you know it, you have a lawsuit this big on your ass, and you have to pay millions and millions of fines to the big corporates. You have to be there, period. And that's driven by the fast pace of technology innovation.
Arie, you mentioned earlier in your speech, you mentioned the word lean. How does, I work for the Middle East Bank, and we've had, to be doing lean. How do lean and agile marry together?
Marriage is, I have a couple of divorces, so man. But okay, lean, this is an expression from Jeff Sutherland, one of the authors of Scrum. Lean is a very efficient process in car manufacturing. Scrum is based on lean and is a very efficient process in software development. So this is where they connect. For me, I made the umbrella on the other side, right? Yeah. So if I do an agile transformation, I might have the developers. They do MVPs, projects. Sorry for the word, but they do projects, right? But also I might have operational teams here. First and second line support. Now this is really backlog organized work, and you can see, okay, this is the value for the next 3 sprints, and ta-da-ta-da. This is just making sure that the clients that are giving in the code, that the tickets are handled, and everyone is happy. So for you, this might be Agile PM and Scrum and Extreme Programming. For you and operations, Lean, Kanban, and XP. They're all part of the Agile family. That's my perception. Is answering your question? Good. Yeah, sure.
I think this should be the last question, because time will be up within 3 minutes.
Oh, come on, we just started.
Yeah? We're just warmed up. Yeah.
I just want to add up to the risk assessment of the project in general. Doing it the Agile way is like by doing the iterations during the project life cycle. You are reducing the risks because you are every time checking with if you are on the right path, and if these backlog sprints are really at the end going to deliver your whole backlog requirements, your whole project. So it will reduce the risks because you are on this continuous iteration process of try and error, and if you are just making errors, then you will just modify the small portion which is having mistakes, then just to correct the whole project at the end, and then you end up with fail of the whole project because you can't come back anymore. And also, like for the, this is basically for the risks. But if you, okay.
Count down now.
So I think just to conclude, we discussed, because we're running out of time. As I introduced Arie, like Agile is a way of interaction. So we take all on board, and we work as a team. So there are so many beliefs and paradigms that should be in place to enable the Agile transformation. Thank you very much. If you want to add
Yeah,
something.
I want to add something about, you know, the change. You need Agile, period. It's about being able to respond. And if you stay in the old tracks, you die within 5 or 10 years, you're out. Becoming Agile is not that difficult, but it takes the change. And if you're not open to change, you're going to have a whole lot of trouble. So start with an open mind. And it's not, oh, this is not going to work for me. It's always about, how can I make it work? And that's the only question to ask you over and over again. Thank you, Mirza.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.